Hello everyone, and welcome to this lecture number 10. Today I want to talk about uh, the title page and abstract that you're going to have to write for your paper coming up. And so this will be a short lecture because there's not really much to talk about, but I want to make sure that you feel very comfortable in exactly what you're supposed to do. My lecture here is adapted from a variety of sources, and I've made sure not to plagiarize and have put those sources right there. So when we come at the title page and abstract, I want to talk about the title page first, but then we'll follow by the abstract. Any APA paper, whether we're talking about a literature review paper or we're talking about a research report, the first two pages are always fixed. And page number one is always your title page, and page number two is always your abstract. Nothing else should be on page number one and page number two. And so that's consistent all the way through as you seek to master APA style. Now, in terms of the title page, we begin numbering the pages right from the title page. In the past, you might have learned or been taught that you shouldn't have, for instance, number one or page number one on the title page. APA style differs with this. The pagination starts with the title page, and it is in the upper right-hand corner on the right, and then on the left, you have what's called the running head. So the running head is left justified, and I'll give you some examples of this in a second, up on the left. And the page numbers are right justified up on the right. Both should be half an inch. So start half an inch down from the top. And of course, both should be on the left, the running head, and on the right, 1 inch in exactly where the 1 inch margin starts. Now, the title page starts with what we call this running head, and you literally type out the words running head, capital RUNNING space small HEAD, followed by a colon, and then your writing head, which is all in caps. Now, please think of the running head as an abbreviation of your title. We've talked in past lectures how there is a sequence of ever increasing or detailed ideas here. Your running head is the shortest way in which you express what your paper is about. Then the title is a little longer. Then the abstract is a little longer than that, or a lot longer than that. Then your introduction is even longer, and then of course there's your whole paper. So the running head is all capitalized, all the letters are capitalized, and it is limited to 50 characters or less. And you should count those. That includes spaces. And when you're coming up with your running head, it's not necessarily the first few words of your title, although a lot of times it is, but it is a way to express, okay, what is this paper about? And how can I summarize this paper in 3 or 4 words, or how can I take my title, which and shorten it down to the essence of what the title is all about. So that essentially is the top of the title page, and here I've given you an example. Clearly it's not exactly detailed, but up in the top right hand corner, again, assume that there's inch margins on either side. For the purposes of this lecture, I just ignored that. But again, you can see the words running head, colon, and my running head I've called wonderful students, and you can see up in the right, justified is number 1. So now here's my title, Wonderful Students at NIAC, colon, the amazing online fall 2018 PSY 110 class. And it looks like some of you authored this paper. as you've been authoring this. It's a sample title page, and our next couple of slides are going to have some more content, but essentially what you want to do is you want to center and put a little higher than the middle of the page your title. Again, if it's a short title, you can have it on one line. If it's a little longer title, you can have 2 lines. And then there's a space, and it's followed by the authors of whatever this paper or research study is. And then underneath that is the affiliation. Again, to just repeat what I say, we're going to center the title of the manuscript top to bottom and left to right. You want it a little higher than right smack in the middle, but not much. So don't put it all at the very, very top of the page. You want it kind of generally in the middle of the page, just a little higher than the middle of the page. Again, in your title, you're going to capitalize the first word, the first letter of every word, with the exception of articles, for instance, at, and, conjunctions, and prepositions. When you're making up your title, it should be no more than 12 words. And again, think of your title as a 12-word summary. Now, if we just go back here and count our title words, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Phew, I just made it. I actually had a different title, and as I was getting ready for my lecture today, I had to get rid of some words because they had 14 words, so I didn't want to violate my own standards. So it should again be a summary of your paper, 12 words or less, and should capture the essence of what your paper is about. And then I know I'm repeating myself, but now your running head should be even a more concise attempt to capture what this paper is about. So you can see here I've given different authors now, the rest of you guys. You want this kind of in the center, in the middle, down, title 12 words or less, running head. We should count our words on running head. Up here, our spaces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for the space. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We're in good shape here. It's got to be 50 or less. And you may wonder why that is. On a regular first page or title page of your paper in which you have 1-inch margins, your font is a 12. And you have the words running head and you start. If you had more than 50 words, what tends to happen is your running head goes almost the entire way on the page, and depending if it was even longer than that, it would run into your pagination there. And so that is one of the reasons why we just keep it to 50 words or spaces or less. Now, as I already said before, following your title with a space is the name. Again, the first name. If you choose to use a middle initial, you don't have to. But unlike the reference page where we start with last names, comma, and then initials, on the title page we use full names, full first names. If we're using middle names, initial, and then the last, and then the affiliation. So the affiliation is, in our particular case, all of our affiliation is Nyack College, New York City. But if someone worked at another college or someone worked for the, I don't know, sanitation department of New York City or wherever that is, you'd put affiliation. If there is no affiliation, so sometimes there are independent authors who write papers, and so they would just put the city and state, or if you were overseas, Bangkok, Thailand, the city and the country in the place where the affiliation is. You never use titles like doctor or sister or brother or father or whatever, other titles, pastor, reverend. We don't use any titles in the the title page simply names, again, first name, yes or no for the middle initial, and last names. The order of the authors is not to be changed. The order of the authors indicates, to the degree possible, that the first author has done the most work, then the second author, should we have more than one author, has done the second most or has made the second most important contribution, and so on and so forth. Now, in a situation where you have three authors and honestly all three authors have contributed equally to the paper, the authors decide, do we just put our names in alphabetical order? If we're writing 3 or 4 papers together, do we just take turns? So, the first paper we write, you go first, then I'll go second, and then our third author will go first. The order of listing there just has several rules. Now, if the authors come from different colleges, have different affiliations, then essentially what we would do is we'd list the first 2 authors from Nyack College, New York City, and then a space, and then the second 2 authors on separate lines, from NYU or whatever that would be. So here we have clearly Running Head APA Style 6th edition, and the name of this paper is using the 6th edition of the APA Manual, a guide for students. And here are the authors, and they come from Valdosta State University in Georgia. Here's what a typical title page would look like. You can certainly look at that. I made a mistake earlier, and let me just fix it right now. There should be no lines between, and I apologize, between your title and the author name and the affiliation name. So even us professors make mistakes, and I do that all the time. That's what a title page should look like. So when you're writing your paper and when you're handing your title page, make sure it's looking exactly like this. The second page is what we call an abstract. The abstract is a brief summary of the entire paper, if it's a lit review paper, the entire research report, if it's a study, and it follows on the second page of any APA paper. Title page is first. This is, you can see in front of you, it says generally located on page 2. You could change that generally to pretty much in every instance. There may be an exception to this, but I don't know of any. The abstract, again, is a summary. It should contain specific information. It should have a little introduction, tell you what your purpose is. If you're writing a research report, it should, in a very, very brief way, describe the methods, describe the results, and a little bit of the discussion. In other words, it's a mini version of your entire paper. That's what an abstract is. That's all an abstract is. The abstract is written on the second page. Up in the top, you do not write the words Running Head. So in page 2 and following, up in the top left justified, is in caps your Running Head. And I'll give you an example of that in a second. And then clearly all the way over to the right justified is going to be number 2, page number 2. Then you simply write the word or type the word abstract on the first line. And then you do not, you just double space. There's no space between the word abstract and the start of your abstract. And then your abstract is written. Please remember that you do not indent the first line of your abstract. It is a single paragraph. In some cases it may be 2, but usually it's a single paragraph that summarizes the content. And usually the limit is somewhere between 150 and 250 words. Now, that is not a hard rule. There are times if the paper is extremely long or extremely complicated that the abstract may go somewhere beyond 250 words. But 350 is a kind of hard, a hard number of words in terms of the most. You don't want to go much below 150. Again, I've certainly read abstracts. It's somewhat legitimate to maybe do 120, but aim for 150 words. Between 150 and 250, any paper can be summarized. You want, again, aim for this. I will, of course, grade you on this because we're trying to learn how to do this, and I'll count your words. The one thing you want to do in an abstract is you don't want any in-text citations. Again, let's call that a 99% rule. I guess there are very unique instances where you might have an in-text citation, but you don't want any direct quotes. As you've already heard me say, that you should generally avoid direct quotes, but certainly you don't want citations or direct quotes in your abstract. So a little mini version of your paper, a mini-me of your paper is what the abstract is. And I'll just tell you right now, the mistakes that people make with abstracts are they indent or they write the word abstract and then they leave a space between or extra space between the word abstract and the actual abstract. So don't do that. I'm warning you, I'm particularly looking for that. So again, here you can see the running head all in caps without the words running head is up in the corner. Number 2, our second page, up on the right justified corner, the word abstract followed by a dive right in. Now we've already violated our rule about an in-text citation, but because this paper is specifically addressing the APA Manual 6th edition, you can see in the middle of our abstract that it simply says the 6th edition of the publication manual, and here we have an in-text citation. But this is a unique case in which our paper addresses one source, and certainly how do you summarize your paper if you don't say, hey, we're addressing this one source. So that's not the entire abstract, but that's what your abstract should look like. Now at the end of your 150 to 250 word abstract, in the last line, after your block text is there, you end it with 3 or 4, or in some cases maybe 5 key words or phrases that again try and essentialize your paper. What are the 3, 4, 5 words that if I look them up might, in a search, might cause your paper to come up? This allows any potential reader of your paper, even after reading the abstract, the summary, to make a quick judgment about the key concepts covered by your paper. So what you're going to do is, following your abstract, go to the next line. You're going to indent 5 spaces, and you're going to type in the italicized phrase, key words, and you're going to follow that by a colon. Then you're going to list your several keywords or key phrases, all separated by commas. And then you capitalize only the first one and or any proper noun. So assuming that we've, the last line here, right down here, assuming this is 5 spaces, we type in keywords. It is italicized. Then there's a space here, and then sleep. Freud would be capitalized because that's a proper noun. And then if this paper was also dealt with anxiety and dreaming. So that's essentially what you do. And I end with, again, commending you. I'm not going to go there here. After you finish this class, you'll be writing APA papers. And again, the standard model that pretty much everybody uses is this Purdue OWL Writing Lab, and if you click on this link here, it'll take you to the APA section of that. What I do want to do before we go is just to go to what a paper would look like, a literature review paper would look like, and